Jason Palmer, one of the hosts of The Intelligence, The Economist's daily current affairs podcast. The Economist's award-winning shows make sense of what matters, from our special series on China's president to our weekly podcasts on business, technology, and American politics. Our journalists provide fair, in-depth reporting on the events shaping the world. To get the annual plan for less than $2.50 per month, search for Economist Podcasts Plus to start listening today.
This episode is brought to you by Jinx, the superfood-powered dog kibble everyone's been talking about. See the results for yourself and try their 1-month transformation. Within the first few weeks, you'll see how Jinx can help with your dog's energy, mood, and even digestion. And it's all thanks to the high-quality ingredients they use, like organic chicken, Atlantic salmon, and grass-fed beef. Try the 1-month transformation today. Find Jinx in your local Walmart.
Hey everyone, welcome back. It's good to have you here again. If you're new here, this is Ranching Reboot, episode 152, the podcast that reboots your thinking about farming, ranching, food systems, and the people that operate them. I'm your host, Brian Alexander. You can find me on social media as Red Hills Rancher on every platform. Welcome to the world where conservation meets recreation, where every outdoor adventure contributes to the stewardship of our planet's precious landscapes. This is the mission of Landtrust.com. A platform that bridges the gap between landowners and outdoor enthusiasts seeking the serenity and the thrill of private land experiences. As we delve into discussions on regenerative agriculture, sustainable land management, and the joys of connecting with nature on Ranching Reboot, we're proud to partner with Landtrust, a company that's as passionate about preserving the beauty of our natural world as we are. Landtrust.com offers an innovative solution for landowners to earn additional income by hosting respectful guests for activities like hunting, fishing, RV camping, and immersive farm tours. This not only provides financial benefit to landowners, but also encourages the conservation of wildlife habitats and promotes biodiversity. By choosing to book your next outdoor adventure through Landtrust, you're directly supporting these efforts, ensuring that the great outdoors remains vibrant and accessible for generations to come. But Landtrust is more than just a booking platform. It's a community of conservationists, adventurers, and stewards of the land. It's a place where you can find over 1 million acres of private land across 40 states, each offering unique experiences that you won't find anywhere else. Whether you're a hunter seeking the solitude and the challenge of hunt private experiences, a family looking for a unique camping spot away from crowded parks, or an angler in search of pristine fishing waters, Landtrust.com has something for everyone. For more information on how you can book your next adventure or list your land, visit Landtrust.com. You'll find the link in our show notes and also on my link tree. Join us in making a difference with every adventure, fostering a legacy of conservation through recreation. Together, we can ensure the great outdoors remains a source of wonder and joy for all. Support for the Ranching Reboot podcast is also provided by all my awesome patrons on patreon.com/redhillsrancher and the awesome subscribers on Spotify. I'm issuing a challenge. If I can get 20 new subscribers or patrons, I will turn off the automated embedded ads for everyone. There's 2 really easy ways to show your support and help keep Ranching Reboot podcast on the air. Head over to patreon.com/redhillsrancher and choose the level of support, or go to the podcast page on Spotify and click listener support. There should also be some links in the show notes. You know, Valentine's Day is coming up soon, and if you're like me, chocolate, well, let's just say I haven't found regenerative chocolate yet. And anything that isn't loaded with seed oils and corn syrup is pretty expensive. Instead of chocolate that'll get eaten in a few days, give the guests the Wild Ass soap. If you don't know about Wild Ass soap, everything is handmade by the Harris family in McCook, Nebraska. They make way more than just the 27 different kinds of soap, all made from tallow and lard sourced from our friends at Ranch Foods Direct. They make ranch balm to protect your skin, natural beef tallow deodorant to keep the funk away without toxic metals and chemicals. Not to mention all sorts of CBD-infused products, from gummies to cold-ass muscle gel to help with those sore shoulders after cold days breaking ice for your livestock. Wild Ass Soap Company. Check them out by clicking the link in the show notes or going to wildasssoaps.com/reboot. This week on Ranching Reboot, my guest is a young man I've known for quite a few years. He's been a longtime follower of mine on social media today. My guest today, Tyrell Owens, an up-and-coming operator from north central Kansas. Please welcome him to the podcast. Well, good morning, Mr. Owens. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm awake. The sun is shining and it ain't cloudy and it's supposed to be almost 70, so it's gonna be a good day.
Gosh, it's just such beautiful weather for January, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I know I, I'm still not gonna say that. Oh my gosh, this is so unusual because it's Kansas. So to me, there's really nothing that's unusual. I mean, maybe a frost in July. Okay, maybe that would be a little bit extreme. But outside of that, eh,
It, I think you're right, but the only things that would surprise me at this point would be snow in June or July.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, other than that, 90 degrees in January. Okay, it's happened, I'm sure.
Well, we were talking a couple months ago, back in the fall. Not you and I, like me and the family.
Mhm,
Um, we always get together for Thanksgiving. We always get together for Christmas, like everybody
mhm.
does.
Yep,
And at Thanksgiving, it's about a third chance that you're going to be in a heavy coat,
yep,
a third of a chance you're going to be in a hoodie, and a third of a chance you're going to be in t-shirt and shorts.
yep, yep.
And Christmas is almost 50-50.
Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
People say, "Oh, I want a white Christmas." Well, welcome to Kansas. You're lucky if you're not wearing shorts and a t-shirt on Christmas.
This was the first white Christmas I ever remember having.
Oh, that's right.
It actually snowed on Christmas, and that is I mean, I am 32 years old, and maybe there was one other one when I was real little. Like, otherwise, we had 2 or 3 years in a row where it was almost 60 degrees on Christmas. I mean,
That's what I'm saying. T-shirt and shorts.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
I guess to make the weather relevant, it's been pretty moist down here.
mhm.
Late summer and fall were pretty moist, pretty similar up there.
So we actually had a relatively wet, well, I say wet. We had rain events into July through August, basically, but it'd come in, it'd rain. I mean, an inch to 2 inches, and then we'd have 2 weeks of triple digits in a row. Rain 2 inches, triple digits 2 weeks in a row. So basically, that moisture lasted 2 to 3 days at a time. I mean, we even had a rain in right around Labor Day, right before the weekend of Labor Day, and it's like, oh man, we're gonna have a wet fall. And then we had a week of triple digits, and that moisture disappeared, and we really didn't have much in the way of moisture until end of October. Maybe we had another moisture event.
Right.
So, and it wasn't a lot, but since maybe December, it would have been sometime in December, we started getting some more moisture, and things haven't been too terrible. I mean, we're wet, right? I mean, we're sopping wet right now, but everyone is for the most part, it seems like. So,
It's awful hard to cuss the mud after the last 3 years.
yeah, it is. It is. It's just, I'm not, yeah, it's hard to cuss the mud, but when you worked in a feedlot for 20 years, it's easy to cuss the mud though, too.
That's fair. For everybody out there in podcast land, why don't you tell the audience where you're at, actually?
So we are 20 minutes north of Salina in Minneapolis, Kansas, not Minnesota. So basically we're right smack dab in the middle of north central Kansas is what I would consider us. We're kind of in a funky spot weather-wise because we don't have the humidity that they have to the east of us, but we have a hell of a lot more humidity than they have to the west of us. So it's kind of the worst of both worlds when it comes to growing crops through the summer heat, because we don't have the humidity to hold the moisture, but we don't cool off at night either. I mean, we'll go weeks at a time when it's really hot, where if it's down to 72, you're thanking the Lord, because it could be 75 when you wake up, and it's just miserable. So,
My dad's talked about Highway 81
mhm.
30, 40 years as being kind of the line between civilization and not civilization.
Yeah,
And
yeah, and we're right on that line. So, right on the line.
I'm significantly west of it, which is why I can drive for
Yes.
2 hours and not see anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And you don't have to go. I mean, if you get into just like Lincoln County or Osborne County to the west of us, I mean, they're pretty sparsely populated. You got Mitchell County, which is Beloit, which that's got a pretty good sized population. But otherwise, if you go west of us, you have to get to like Russell County or Ellis County or something like that. But otherwise, you go north, it gets kind of sparsely populated in areas. But I mean, compared to us, I mean, we're in a sweet spot because we're close enough to Salina. So we have a population that commutes a lot to Salina. I mean, my wife commutes to Salina to work, or they'll commute to maybe even Concordia, some people. So we're kind of we'd be no bigger of a town than say like Lincoln if we weren't a sleeper community for Salina, basically. That's what I've always said.
Do you have a Dollar General or a Walmart?
We have a Dollar General.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
That's
so.
I can't even hardly think of a town over 1,000 people that doesn't have one. Okay, 500. They put
Yeah,
one
that's what I was. Yeah.
So if your town isn't big enough to have a Dollar General, you're from a really small town.
Yeah. I mean, I think the town population, it's right around 2,000. I can't remember if it's above or just below it. But like I said, we have in Ottawa County is a decent sized county. So that helps. I mean, there's three high schools in the county. I mean, 2 school districts. So we're very fortunate that where we are located, and we're along I-35 or 81, whatever you want to call it, whatever the appropriate term is. So we get a lot of people just because of that. And like I said, just proximity to Salina. So.
Okay. Well, tell us about your operation and like maybe some, like, I guess start with how you grew up, education, how you ended up on the operation you're in, and what it looks like.
So I was born and raised in Western Kansas. So from Leota originally, so far Western Kansas. Then we moved to Minneapolis after my 6th grade year. My dad has worked in managed feedlot his whole life, basically. And so that was kind of the context that I grew up in. Then I went to, growing up, working in a feedlot, I basically wanted nothing to do with agriculture. When I got out of high school, I had a hat that I wore all through high school. And the last day I worked at the feedlot before I went to Hayes for college, I threw the hat away and said, well, I won't be needing that again. So went to Hayes, majored in history, because I enjoy history. I'm good at it. And our parents were pretty adamant about, all of their kids getting their college education, right, wrong, or otherwise. But so done that, got married to high school sweetheart. She went to Hayes with me. And then I graduated in 4 years. And while in college, I worked at a La Crosse sale barn. Then I also worked for a rancher west of Hayes, because it's not about getting a job, isn't about what you know, it's about who you know. And so yes. I had connections to both. So my wife will tell you, I've basically never done an interview I've done one interview in my life, and I didn't end up going to work for him. So you can ask her how much, like, you suck, basically, is what she'll tell you. But
hey, I've never had to really interview for a job either. I'm 45 years old.
Right. Yeah. So it's like I said, it's nice when your dad and your brothers know people, and hey, my brother worked for you this, or my brother-in-law worked for you, and yeah, I think that'll work. So, but so she was still in school. She had another year in Hayes to get her ultrasound. So I came back home. We were already married, and I worked at the feedlot while she was finishing school, and then she done her internship in Salina. And so I continued working at the feedlot. And then the catalyst to getting the sheep was, so maybe back up a little bit. So I was in school still at Hayes. My mom handed me a Heritage Breeds magazine. I don't know the name of it, but it's the Heritage Breed Association of the United States or North America, whatever.
For sheep or for all species?
For all species. Like it's an organization, like Livestock Conservancy. Livestock Conservancy. That's the name of it. And so that, I don't know, for whatever reason, that kind of piqued my interest. And I was reading on that or whatever, and just kind of like, oh, that'd be kind of a fun side hobby, eventually when I get older, these are interesting. And then somehow, I don't know, I found Joel Salatin on YouTube and like, there is potential to make money in agriculture, not doing it necessarily like everybody else does. And so I was like, yeah, I might be interested in this farming thing, maybe after all. And then I found Gabe Brown.
Can I stop you?
Yep.
So you said you grew up with your dad managing feedlots,
Mm-hmm.
and you knew you didn't want to work in ag. Is that because of feedlots?
Well, yeah. So both of my both sets of my grandparents were farmers. Growing up, we still, we had a small cow herd. My dad and brother had a small cow herd. My grandma still has, I don't know, a couple sections of land that she rents out down out at Lagota. And so we grew up around farming. Like growing up when I was really little, I wanted to farm. I mean, that's what I wanted to do. And then after working at the feedlot, basically starting in 7th or 8th grade and doing that all summer and weekends throughout the winter, I was like, no, I wouldn't necessarily say that our parents encouraged us to pursue agriculture. That's why they wanted us to go get an education. So I didn't know what I was going to do with history, but by golly, I was going to college and I was going to major in history. To be honest with you, I wanted to get it because I grew up, so I came to age, like kind of discovered politics from Ron Paul. And so to be honest with you, I kind of wanted to get into politics. That was my goal kind of, because when I started, I was also majoring in political science because I was inspired and by Ron Paul. And so I kind of came up with that as far as my political outlook. But so found Gabe Brown though halfway through college. And it's like, okay, now that's a lot more familiar to the agriculture that I grew up around, but it's still not the same. And it made sense as far as the cover crops and integrating livestock and the diversity. But I had already started majoring in history and I wasn't going to switch to ag. Just wasn't going to happen. So I finished my degree, but for some reason I had got in my head of I wanted sheep. Eventually we were going to have sheep. So I got out of college and me and my brother, we done a market garden for a summer, a little market garden. Didn't really make any money. Worked our asses off. Didn't make any money. We done some pastured poultry. We done the chicken tractor with the broilers. I think that one summer we raised 300 or so chickens. But it got to the point for me, I was like, I can't do both plus work full time. So I kind of just took over the broiler part for the rest of the summer. And then he finished the summer with the market garden, which whatever, that was fine. And then I don't know, I kind of just sat back, but I was kind of managing, I don't know if I'd say manage, but I was putting together mixes for the feedlot on the hay mixes essentially. And I got to be the tractor jockey for the little bit of farm ground we had. And so I went to Soil Health U. I think it's the first Soil Health U. And like I said, I had this idea that I wanted sheep.
Okay.
So was listening to the panel. There's this guy with a really funny accent, and I really couldn't place where he was from. His name was Nick Moss. But
I know that guy.
Yeah, I know. He's going to love this if he listens to it, because I've already told him he gets blamed for everything. But I listened to him on a panel, and he was grazing sheep on cover crops on farm ground. It's like, well, yeah, that would work. Why the hell didn't I think of that? Or why did it click with whatever Gabe Brown was doing? But for whatever reason, it never had clicked. And so I talked to him a little bit after his panel got done, and went up in the stands because I knew there were some, I'd seen an advertisement for some sheep for sale, and went up in the stands and called the banker about getting a loan, and then called the sheep guy about getting sheep. And 2 weeks later, we came home with our first 20 head. I take that back. We had gotten 8 sheep earlier because we had puppies born from a Pyrenees Anatolian dog. So like, okay, we already had the puppy. We're not going to go buy the dog. We'll go buy the sheep to get them bonded to the dog. But so 2 weeks later after Soil Health U, we came home with 20 more. They were Rambouillets. And so that's how we got started, was because Nick Moss, I was like, I'm done waiting. We're going to do this. So from there, we lambed out the 20 head of Rambouillets for Oh, that was in March. And about 2 weeks into that, I told Jessica, I said, there is no way in hell we're going to make money at the end of this deal, because we were having to feed them, and it sucked lambing in March, and because we'd have freezing rain come in. And I mean, I was doing everything right. I was feeding the ones that were with twins. I was feeding them a little bit more because they'd been ultrasounded for singles and multiples. So I separated them and feeding the ones with twins more, separating them out as they lamb. So I had the ones that hadn't lambed in one pen and the ones that had lambed in another pen. I mean, we were doing everything right. I mean, and we got along fine on lambing, but nothing against Rambouillets, but they suck. And so we wanted to get hair sheep, and I called a guy out at Deerfield who'd had sheep for years and years. And it just so happened that he had painted desert sheep, which is exactly what we had with the first 8 sheep.
Okay,
and painted
that's a sheep from the Southwest, right?
They were originally bred as a game sheep in Texas.
Okay.
Like on a game ranch. Cause they're, I don't know, there's like 5 or 6 different breeds that they use to make them, but, they're much more of a primitive sheep. I mean, I could show you a picture of when we first got sheep, and the painted desert sheep we had are literally half the size of the Rambouillets. I mean, literally half the size. But we went down. He just happened to have some. We were originally going to buy 50 head. We ended up buying, I think, 30 because where we were living at the time, we ended up having to move. And so we lost our little bit of land base we had. It wasn't much, but we ended up having to move. We were just renting it. But we had they happened to be bred that first fall. Then they weren't supposed to. So I don't know, we had like 10 or 12 that lambed. They were so much easier lambing. I mean, the babies were up in less than 5 minutes in nursing. It's like, oh, this is going to be nice. And so we raised hair sheep. We raised them, and we started breeding them up with a Dorper cross and stuff like that. And I rented the feedlot, dryland farm ground. And so we were running along on cover crop and stuff. And,
so combination of dry lot and cover crop.
After that first year, we never really dry lotted them again. I was able to graze year round. I grazed like the feedlot pivots during the winter because we'd have like rye or triticale. If we could get it planted early enough, I could just run them out on that all winter, and then maybe just supplement them hay on certain parts of the fields, like especially when we got to our dry land. It was kind of like dry lotting, but there was lots of residue. I would feed them with, so the feedlot I had access to a bale processor working at the feedlot. So I just bale process some hay and then just kind of creep feed the fence, just slowly move it forward about 5 feet every day or whatever. And so we'd maybe do that. I don't know. Most years we probably did that 60 days, maybe.
I hate to stop you. Can you maybe describe that when you're with the bale processor and creep in the fence every couple of days? Can you maybe just go back and kind of describe that so people have a better picture?
So we would, so for our fencing, we used electric net fencing from Premier One. So they are 164 foot, I think is what, their lengths are. So that would be our paddock size, 164 by 164 on average. So when it came time to where we were out of feed or whatever, or just the weather was too hard and whatever, so we were going to be feeding hay. So I would put out, say, 6 bales at a time, about the width of that fence wide, and run them vertical. Go and say, if they're going east-west.
Okay.
Then I'm going to have a fence that's north-south, and I'm going to slowly, I'm going to have it just slightly shorter. So it'll probably be like only going 55 feet across. So I can fold the ends in. So then every day I'd start at one end, start moving my fence, and just slowly move the fence forward, make a little kick of the hay a little bit out of the way, and just my fence would just sit there. And so I was just slowly moving the fence forward over the windrows of hay.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why I say it was basically a creep feed, but I would load the area with residue and nutrients. It was basically like bale grazing without the bale.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking. Like it's kind of like a bale strip grazing type thing.
Yeah. Because I found out pretty quick that sheep really don't like eating hay. Like they just really don't. they would rather graze any time that they can. I mean, I've seen them, they'll be grazing damn near on like a twig or a stick. And it's like, I don't know what the hell you're getting out of that, but whatever. So, but
gumming the bark off of it or something.
yeah. I mean, yeah, basically. I mean, it is like, who am I to say? But so that was kind of our, if we did have to really feed, that's how we'd feed. And so we'd get a lot of residue, a lot of trash, because they waste a lot of hay. I mean, they waste a lot. So, but ideally, that's not what we would do. Ideally, we would try and have them grazing. Last year I grazed them on milo stalks and then just supplemented them with oat hay. So, so that, I mean, that the sheep were basically the center of our operation. I tried growing milo 2 years. Yeah, it didn't really, I'm really cheap. I always, you've heard of a shoestring budget. Well, I had a Velcro budget. I mean, so
Milo, Velcro lace New Balance shoes.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, so I would, my money was spent basically on seed, and then I would spend just enough money on herbicide to try and get stuff established, essentially, to terminate what was there before, to try and get what I wanted there to grow. So,
and you were looking at the milo as a commodity crop, as a cash crop, not as a grazing crop.
Yeah. Yep. And then just be able to graze it after the fact, though, but just to help help with cash flow instead of just relying on the sheep type of thing.
So did it work?
If I could have maybe spent just a little bit of money, it would have worked. If I would have spent money on maybe 20 or 30 pounds of, say, nitrogen, I probably would have had a pretty decent milo crop for not a whole lot of money. Because I mean, I was averaging, I don't know, 20 bushels, 23 bushels is all I averaged, but I didn't have squat for inputs in it.
Right.
I mean, so when I'd have the neighbors cut, and they're like, well, we had a field that only made 20. And I bet I spent a whole lot less money on mine than what you guys done. I mean, so it was just, I don't know. With land rent, between land rent and the price of cover crop seed price of cover crops have drastically went up in the time from when I first started in 5 years to like now. I mean, so like when I would have started, I think oats, or let's just say rye would have been like 10 cents a pound. This year, rye is 30 cents a pound.
Okay.
That's more than doubling. That's 150% increase in the cost. And you can just take that across the board on every cover crop species. So when I'm pretty heavily relying on cover crops, I got to really pick and choose how much money I'm spending on my seed and balancing my species need, because it's still got a cash flow.
Shipping can make or break a sale, so optimize how you ship your orders with ShipStation. They make it easy to automate and manage orders no matter how big your business grows. And they might even be able to help reduce shipping and warehouse costs. So optimize and keep up your momentum for growth with ShipStation. Sign up for your free 60-day trial now at ShipStation.com and use the code POD. That's ShipStation.com with the code POD.
This episode is brought to you by Jinx, the superfood-powered dog kibble everyone's been talking about. See the results for yourself and try their 1-month transformation. Within the first few weeks, you'll see how Jinx can help with your dog's energy, mood, and even digestion. And it's all thanks to the high-quality ingredients they use, like organic chicken, Atlantic salmon, and grass-fed beef. Try the 1-month transformation today. Find Jinx in your local Walmart.
I think I saw this coming a couple years ago. I'm not going to put my finger on it when, but the more people that want to grow cover crops, that's going to put more demand on the people that grow the cover crops for the seed. And as much as we like to think, a lot of these cover crops that we want to grow in, a 7-way blend or, a 13-way grazing blend, in order to get that seed, those are probably monocultures. Just saying. And I think that, because soil health, regenerative agriculture, cover crops, grazing cover crops, I think it's getting adopted like so fast that these companies, like, I'll just name green cover because they come to mind. Like green
Right.
cover, they're probably having a hard time keeping up with some of their cover crop seeds. I forget what it was. I ran across something the other day. Like there's a common cover crop seed that's just simply not available right now because it's already been sold.
Well, so it's a combination of, one, yes, there has been an increase in demand. Two, there in certain areas where they grow cover crop seed, like say like the Northwest, there has been, I don't know about this year, but there was a year where they basically came up short of production. They had weather factors that just limited the production. And so you put that in combination with increased demand plus increase of crop costs of production across the board, well, it's going to get passed on. It's just, it got passed on in a hurry. I mean, type of thing. I mean, it really just, you basically had four factors hitting the cover crop seed business all at once, between demand, cost of production increases, plus weather factors that limited what production there was. So yeah, it's been tricky, lowering seed costs, finding different seeds that are cheaper. I mean, like this last year, instead of planting cowpeas, I planted soybeans because soybeans were half the cost of the cowpeas.
Like, what came to mind immediately was patented Monsanto seeds, and I know you didn't plant that.
No.
Is that something you're worried about? Would be getting like some GMO soybean contamination and have Monsanto get mad at you?
No, because you can do it as long as you don't sell the seed.
Okay.
Whoever buys them, they can. So they were, I think what they were, was they were like group 7 soybeans that were basically excess, but they got to get rid of. So I don't know if they were, I'm assuming they were non-GMO. I don't know. I really don't care. They were only 70 cents a pound. So I wasn't going to complain. I just planted them, and we ended up actually swathing and baling what that was in as a cash crop. Because hay was I made more money selling hay this year than I ever did growing milo. I made a whole lot more money growing a hay crop because price of hay was so good this year.
I bet. And well, it was volatile. It was real volatile.
Yes.
Summer, because like some areas would get rains and price would drop, and then a week later it would nobody else would get rain and it'd shoot right back up another $50.
Yeah. Yep. But I mean, it was a lot lower risk because it's like, okay, if there's a few weeds, going to get swathed and baled. So no, it worked. Cost of swathing and baling is pretty darn expensive, but I mean, that's anything, whether you're having custom harvest or swathing and baled, it all costs something. So,
well, I've told this story probably 3 or 4 times on the podcast, but I had a friend down in Oklahoma, just about an hour south of me. And this was like mid-June, when after it started raining, they're trying to get wheat out of the fields. Mm-hmm. Well, the insurance man came out and adjusted the wheat to basically 20 and said, you got to cut it or do something with it. And they couldn't get the spray plane there in time to spray the pigweeds, kochia, and crabgrass. So my buddy Tim, he's just like, well, I'll buy it. I'll buy it standing in the field. Didn't pay a whole lot for it, but he hired the chopper and a silage chopper and a hauling crew. Mm-hmm. He said he put like 7,000 tons in the bunk for like $40 a ton. Mm-hmm. And it tested at 13.5%.
Right.
I mean, you get some cheap hay with that, you can keep cow alive. You might even gain some weight over the winter. That's pretty good ration for the price.
Yeah.
And I think about, like, I have a neighbor that had a field of oats and a field of wheat full of pigweeds, crabgrass, and kochia. He hired the spray plane, and then he raked and baled it himself. And I'm just wondering, like, I almost feel like hiring the spray plane and then baling it and selling it, I think he made less money than just if he would have just, had it chopped and put in the bunk and fed it to cows.
Well, yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I'm sure someone told him that it was a good idea to go spray it, but I don't know.
Well, probably those 7 most dangerous words in agriculture. We've always done it this way, and we're going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah. Something like that. So,
what do you think about GPS collars?
I think in certain areas, maybe they would work. So so the whole reason why I was using net fence was because I had no permanent infrastructure. So the reels, I tried messing with the reels in combination with my electric net fence. It's just as fast to keep on using the net. In larger areas, maybe there could be something to it. I don't know, because I think there might be potential. I think they just have to get the technology better. They have to get the battery life better or something, my thought has been for a while, what if instead of, if you had in combination with GPS collars, what if you had basically step-in posts? You just go and set in step-in post every 100 feet or whatever. You don't put up wire, and it basically makes a force field, essentially, from post to post to post. To me, I don't know. I'm not an engineer. My mind doesn't work like that, but that has crossed my mind is what would happen if we just eliminated at least one step of the process of putting up fence. And all you had to do is go put in 10 posts to fence in an acre. And then they work in combination with the collars or something like that. I don't know.
Interesting idea. I'm sitting here thinking a fence post with, a little solar panel and a little sensor on them. And they maybe have to have their own brain, or they have to have something on them that the collar is going to be able to see or sense to know where that barrier is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you. I think there's some exciting things about the GPS collars. It's very exciting things. I think there's also some really big problems.
Right.
Batteries need another technological leap. So it brings the weight down, then you can do more things if you can carry more electricity. The thing that I would be most fascinated by, and this would work great for sheep too, is just give me a movement. Give me a movement and activity state. Every minute. So I can tell if that animal is moving, grazing, sleeping, resting, drinking, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me where it's at. Now, multiply that by 500 animals and put them in a paddock, and then you get a heat map of where they have been grazing all day and where they've spent their time. And then you say, oh, well, those lazy suckers didn't go use the west end of that paddock.
Right.
So you fence off the east end and you make them go over there.
Right.
So I get really excited when I start hearing about, grazing heat maps, because that's what really starts to excite me is, and with data like that, we can go out to the pasture. What did the cows eat today? And then we can start to figure out maybe why they ate that specific day instead of another day.
Right.
So those are the kind of things that I start to get excited about. But then again, there's the EID mandates floating around again.
Right. Yeah.
I can see a dark dystopian future where at birth, everything gets a tag with an EID and they get a collar on them from birth.
Right.
And then all your animals tracking data is on the internet. And of course, we know the internet is perfectly secure. Nobody's data ever gets compromised. Nobody ever gets hacked.
Well, and it's the whole so here's what comes into my mind with this whole GPS collar and it'll tell them where they can go. Me and you both know that animals are visual creatures. That livestock, ruminant animals are visual creatures. Okay. We both know that if they get used to there's a fence there, they're not going to cross it unless they don't see that fence anymore. So what is going to trigger an animal in their mind to go across that point? because they have no visual connection to it.
Pressure. You'd have to generate. So, okay. So they have a mental pressure because they've been trained to think that there's a fence there.
Right.
And now you want them to cross that fence, but you want them to cross that boundary. So there has to be some kind of a counter pressure applied somewhere. And okay, I could maybe see that as a training thing. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know with sheep, but with cows, 10 to 14 days. And you will have all the animals on whatever program you want them on, as long as you're consistent with your training every single day. And you can really shorten that down if you're, super consistent. I think when we went strip grazing with the bat latches, I think by the 4th or 5th day, everybody was on program.
Right.
I could just go sit and watch the gate open. And as soon as the gate would open, all 125 of them would just go.
Yeah.
So training, I think a lot about training cattle and about how intelligent cattle are and how they interact with their environment. And I'm with you. Cattle, sheep, they're very visual. I mean, somehow they can see that 1/8 of an inch steel cable from a half a mile away.
Right. And so that's why I struggle with, like, how are you going to get them to overcome a invisible barrier? That's where I'm like, I'm sure there's a way to do it. Someone will figure it out. I just know, I mean, if you have cattle that aren't used to hot wire, like you don't move them all the time. I mean, we've had it where we try to get them out of a gate and they'll just sit there at the gate because, well, that wire is there because they've only been in and out of it. They've basically never been in and out of it. And so that's why I'm like, so how are you going to get them to respect the boundary, respect the collar? Because eventually they will be, well, I'm not going over there because every time I do, I get buzzed or whatever. But now you want me to go over there? How do I know it's safe to go over there? I mean, that's where I struggle with just knowing, because the sheep, it took, I don't know, maybe 3 days before when I first started grazing them, as far as just opening the fence and they all run through. I mean, and with sheep, it's really, I always say sheep are smarter than cattle. I can say that I've seen cattle do enough stupid shit working in a feedlot. So I've never seen sheep do as much stupid crap as I've seen cattle do. But sheep, and it makes sense because of what an old timer told me. When we moved sheep, I had to be the lead. They would follow me. So I would be out in front and someone else would have to bring up the pressure, bring it back, make sure they kept on following. It would have been easier a lot of times for my wife to lead and me to be on the 4-wheeler running back and forth if I needed to keep them going. But they would look at her and go, "What are you doing? He's over here."
Yeah. Who are you?
I mean, basically. I mean, if I was there, we literally had that one time. It was one of the first times we kind of let him out of the fence to move him someplace. She opened the gate and they just stood there and looked at her. And I was behind them. I was like, well, I guess we're going to have to switch. So I just jog out in front of them and they just followed me. I mean, and I'm sure cattle are very similar. I've seen it before, as far as if you do it enough, if someone hollers, like, come on or whatever, they'll go for that person. If it's someone else doing the same thing, no, we're not used to you. We don't know who you are. Right.
I just tell Big Steve to bring him and he brings them.
Right. Yeah. And you always have a leader, and it's the same with sheep. There's always someone that's out front. There's someone whose attention you get. As soon as they see what you're doing, they're moving, and everybody else is like, oh, we better go. So yeah, I just struggle with the barriers thing, the invisible barrier. And I think there's a place for them. I just, like I said, someone smarter than me gonna have to figure it out. Put it that way.
Yeah, I agree. And someone more wealthy than I is going to have to pay for
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
I mean, it's a tall ask to pay, 50 cents a day for subscription for one of those collars.
Yeah.
Then either buy the hardware or lease it at another fee. And, you do that for 2 years, for a production cycle, you're going to put a hell of a lot of cost in that beef.
Well, you're looking at an additional, so 300 times 50, that by itself is $150 at 50 cents a day.
Yep.
Add it to the back of that calf. Are you getting paid an extra $150? And that's lowballing it.
Well, okay. So maybe not look at it that you need to get another $150 out of that calf. Are you going to save
right.
$150 because of that collar on that calf?
Yeah.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
Like,
right. Yeah. Because
anybody that says they could save $150 by putting a GPS collar on their calf, show me the math.
Right. Because that's $150 per animal. If you spend, say, $3,000 on hardware, well, you spread that out across a herd of, say, 100 over 10 years, even 5 years, what did that come out to per head? A hell of a lot less than $150 per year.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, when I look at them, when I look at those collars, all I see is a device that's trying to save more labor.
Right.
Because it's a technology that does something that you and I can do on foot with our livestock.
Right.
I mean, we're controlling moving of livestock. That's what they're for. You and I can do that on foot. We can do it with a fence. We can do it with a 4-wheeler. We can do it with a horse, or we can do it with a GPS collar that gets a signal from outer space.
Right. And that's always perfectly reliable.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That technology is perfect. It never fails, right?
Yes. Never fails. Yeah.
And nobody, it's perfectly secure. Your data is fine. Nobody will ever get that data. Nobody will ever be able to hack into it. I mean, you want to talk about a crappy scenario, like, okay, so those collars do kind of become a widespread thing and people are using them. Well, let's just say, you've got 500 cows grazing on a circle close to I-70.
Right.
And they're being held in by one of those no fences.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody hacks that, just turns off the fence or redraws the border to where all the cows move onto the highway.
Right.
Wouldn't that be fun? Yeah.
Good thing Kansas is free range state, right?
That's a good point. I was just thinking of like the legal mess that you would be in and trying to prove like, no, I had a fence there. It was
right.
like a digital fence because these digital collars, and then somebody hacked it and they got out. I don't know how well I don't think a judge would have too much of a sense of humor about something like that.
Probably not. Probably.
I don't want to find out.
Hey, I got to take a quick bathroom break.
Hey,
Too much coffee this morning.
Glad you said that. I'll take one too. So we'll pause right here. We'll be right back. And we're back. I think next time I have to list my occupation and write it out, I'm going to write reverse coffee filter, because my superpower is I turn coffee back into water.
Yep. Pretty much. Yeah. I only had like 2 cups this morning because I'm not drinking coffee right now, because otherwise I'd be going to need one more break. But I do want to bring a little bit of closure to our operation. And then if you have any other things you want to talk about as far as the operation, but just to be full transparent. So this year was actually the last year that we had sheep. We actually got rid of them all in,
it's like October, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was end of October. Yep. We ended up getting rid of them all simply because we lost half the farm ground that we were managing. What
happened? Did somebody lease it out from under you? Or decide to go a different route, or if you don't mind?
So most of the farm ground that we were renting was the feedlot dry land, and the feedlot went out of business this summer. So things changed, and so we just wasn't going to venture down that path with whatever happens in the future with that ground. And with new employment, it didn't work as well trying to take care of livestock. We have a whopping 30 acres at the moment that we are managing. And it's 15 minutes, 20 minutes from town. And so that really wasn't going to be conducive to going and taking care of sheep with 40 minutes round trip every single day. So it worked really well working at the feedlot and having the sheep right there, either right there by the feedlot or south side south side of the creek of the feedlot. It worked really well for me and my family, as far as I could either go pick the kids up and run right back out and go take care of sheep, or if we got done a little early, I could run out and move the sheep. I mean, my labor was spent moving fence. I mean, that was what my time was spent on. I did not hardly deal with the sheep per se. We handled the sheep basically 3 times a year, something like that. We'd work them, we'd castrate the boys, give them a shot of CDT and a shot of MUSI, and then we'd sort them and we'd tag them. We tag them at birth. So I guess that's the first one. We tag boy, girl at birth, and then we'd sort them for sale barn. Other than that, we never really handled the sheep. So that's why I always tell people sheep are easier than cattle. Especially if you had the infrastructure, if you had the setup. I always say I was born in the wrong country for sheep. If I was in Australia or New Zealand, something like that, it's like, oh yeah, this would be easy. I mean, but we didn't drench them. We never really had any sick sheep. I mean, we didn't have problems with them, but it was because of the way we were managing. So.
This episode is brought to you by JLL. Get an insider view into the world of commercial real estate with JLL's podcast, Trends and Insights, the Future of Commercial Real Estate. Whether you're curious about making cities more sustainable, the evolution of office space, or AI opportunities, this podcast will help keep you a step ahead. Tune in for candid conversations with business leaders about the biggest trends impacting how we live, work, and play. Subscribe to Trends and Insights now at jll.com/podcast.
TIAA is on a mission. Why? Because 54% of Black Americans don't have enough savings to retire. So in collaboration with big-name artists like Wyclef Jean, TIAA released Paper Right, new music inspiring a new financial future. With 100% of streaming sales going to a nonprofit that teaches students how to invest. Stream Paper Right now and help close the gap.
Do you think a lot of the problems that people think about when they think about sheep on pasture is just outdated from, the 30s, 40s, and 50s, when a lot of folks did transition to sheep and just tried to do set stock like they do with cows?
I think it would be a combination of that, set stock, genetics, and people don't realize how much forage it takes to run a sheep. I mean, I came to what my figures were in our environment, in our system. It takes about 1.7 acres per ewe, which when I say a ewe, I'm throwing her babies on with her for whenever she has them. I'm saying about 1.7 acres. If you want to graze year round, you'd have to have 1.7 acres per ewe.
Okay, can you put that in context in cow numbers?
So our sheep average about 100, our ewes average probably 120, 130 pounds. So what would that be, about 17 acres for a cow? It'd be more than that, because most cows weigh more than 1,000 pounds.
Right. I mean, most people that say they have 1,000-pound cows, they haven't had a 1,000-pound cow on a scale in 10 years.
So probably 20 plus acres year-round grazing in our environment, for if you are grazing for the soil. That's what it takes.
Okay.
And I always told people, I don't get any benefit by taking more, because there's no nutrition in that bottom half anyways. And the sheep pick up parasites. The sheep don't do as well. For me, it's easy to just leave it, because it doesn't do them any good anyways.
I think it's the same for cattle. Like when the cattle are eating the top half of the plant, they're not getting down there, and they're not getting all the disease and pathogens that are living a little closer to the soil. Right. I haven't had disease pressure or any problems or pink eye or foot rot in years. I don't doctor anything.
Right. Now, I'm not saying we never had any parasites. If we had ewes that got wormy, if I could catch them with my crook, I would catch them, dose them with Safeguard, just to keep them alive, maybe to get to sale barn. Probably 70% of the time I couldn't catch them, so I wouldn't douse them, and they would die, and they became fertilizer. And I never lost an ounce of sleep over it. because, to quote Mike Wallace, especially a coal looking you ain't worth shit. If they're skin and bones, they're not worth nothing, and you're not going to put that weight back on them without spending a whole lot more money than what they're worth. So,
yeah, I guess that is the thing with sheep is they're cheap, but because they're relatively cheap.
Yeah.
And, and everybody's numbers are going to be different. And sometimes like a sheep may have a lower profit per unit than a cow, but you make up for it with volume.
Mm-hmm.
And, with a cow, there's guys that get into arguments about a feedlot Z tag versus, the feedlot Z tag for $1.25 versus a freaking EID tag for $4.50. Like they'll nickel and dime those numbers down on their cows. Right.
Right. Well, I would nickel and dime that on my sheep. If I have, because so we have to, for sheep, we have to use a scrapey tag.
Right.
When we go to the sale barn. I learned pretty quick. I'm not putting that scrapey tag in until they're on the trailer going to the sale barn, because they're $2.50 a pop.
Okay.
I'm not going to waste them. I'm not getting paid extra. I'm not making that $2.50 back. And if we're going to have to do an EID, well, I'm sure as hell not making $4.50 back. I mean, and I would argue that if you look at a cow unit versus a ewe unit, the ewe is more profitable because she's raising on average 1.8 of herself versus 1.
I mean, that's true. I'm just thinking like cost to run the mother.
Right.
Because
yes.
Sheep, your numbers are right there with everything else I've heard, that sheep are 7 to 10 sheep per a cow. Okay.
Yeah.
So now bear with me a minute. So if we have to put the same EID tag in a sheep at $4.50 and a scrapey tag at $2, that's $6.50 of cost we just put into that sheep. Okay. Let's say we had to do the same thing to the cow, or let's just say we're baller and we put EID tags in both ears. So now we spent $9 on that cow. So we spent $9 on the cow, but the equivalent weight of sheep, you need to take what we spent times 10.
Yeah. Yep.
And any extra little bit of cost in that sheep really, really hurts the bottom line, because you're depending on volume for turnover.
Well, and that's part of the reason why the last year I quit feeding mineral. I just switched to salt because price of mineral, a cheap mineral was $20 by this year, when 2 years ago it was $16. It's like, well, I'm not getting paid extra. I'm not getting paid more to feed my sheep mineral. They're going to have to figure out how to do it without it. That's how I looked at it.
What salt did you use? What did you go to?
Just the Canopolis salt. Or
Green,
not Canopolis.
Kansas Independent?
Yeah, the blue and white bag.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the blue stuff is the stuff to get, not the green bag, because the green bag has yellow Prussia cake, something in there to help keep the salt from sticking together.
Oh, gotcha.
And Steve Campbell allows that's not the best stuff for cows. It's not the worst, but it's not the best. So
I'm not saying I was right by doing that. That's how I justified it to myself, was I'm not getting paid more to buy sheep mineral.
And well, I kind of want to back this up. I don't know what cow mineral costs anymore, because I've just been using, I've got a little bit of Kansas Gray left. I used the last of my C90 right there at the end of summer. Been feeding up the Kansas Gray. And I remember when I was a kid, guy that worked for my dad, he was the old foreman on a ranch next door that sold. And when it sold, he needed a job and he came over to work for my dad. And he was a big believer in salt, and he wasn't really a big believer in mineral. And I guess it was early 90s, and salt was kind of going up a little bit, and that was when the purified white salt was coming on the market, and salt blocks, and that's what everybody switched to instead of sea salt. Well, that's also when we started having, started developing health problems in our cows, I think anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting that now we've come full circle.
Right.
Like all these fancy mineral blends, we've all realized they're not all they've cracked up to be, and you don't always know what the hell's in them. Sea salt seems to be the best deal.
And they're hella expensive.
Yeah. Do you mind saying how much you paid a bag for Kansas Gray or a pallet?
Or a bag would have been
Probably like $3-4.
No, I think it was up to 6 because I was bitching about it.
Okay.
Because it was originally like 4. I think this last year it was up to 6 a bag.
They must have really raised their prices. I think it was can't remember when I went and got those 5 pallets. Would have been, I guess, like 2.5 years ago. I went up there and got 5 pallets.
Right.
And it was very inexpensive. It was under $1,000 for 5 pallets.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm 2.5 years ago. Yeah, it was $3.50 to $4 a bag. But yeah, just again, price of everything, even salt. Yeah, I was like, price of salt even gone up $2. This is ridiculous.
You're not. Somebody else told me probably like 6 months ago that Canopolis had really raised their prices, and what they were kind of telling me about, like, it was kind of in the range where you're telling me, and maybe I better call them and see what they're charging for salt these days.
Yeah. You better get it before it goes up to 8.
Yeah. Redmond's probably not going to get a whole lot cheaper either.
Yeah, right.
No, I think they're all pretty good. I think Redmond's or Kansas Independent. I think they're both good. C90. Yeah. I mean, it could have, it's modern water. So it can have anything, all sorts of modern contaminants in it.
Right.
It could, not saying it does. So let's see, what are we, so what's next? So if you lost most of your ground, what are you looking at, what are you going to try to put together for this year, or if anything, with livestock?
Well, probably nothing on the livestock side. I'm then going to be working more with Nick on trying to do a better job of growing a cash grain crop, and actually, managing it to be as profitable as possible, not as high yielding as possible, but as profitable as possible. And so that means, using, probably going to be growing corn is what the plan is. And like I said, trying to do as good a job as we can on that for as little money as possible. And then trying to work out something to do maybe, like I said, it might not happen. So I guess I won't get into it, but maybe another alternative livestock. We'll just leave it at that, because that's a lot, it's still up in the air on that ground. So I won't get too far into depth into that, but
another alternative livestock, like, that sounds like alpacas or some shit.
No, nothing that crazy. Just something much smaller, if you know what I mean. That flies around.
Birds?
No. Even smaller.
Dung bees.
There was someone that talked about it at No Till this year.
Bees. You're going to do bees.
Maybe. We'll see. We tried to catch some last year. We don't think we did. There's still a box up on the ground, but don't think we ever caught any. But maybe we'll catch some in the box this spring. So we'll see. But like I said, that's a lot up in the air. I still got to convince the other landowner to go along with it. So, but we'll see.
A lot of landowners will do an awful lot if you promise them a couple jars of fresh honey.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like I said, and that's the thing. We're to the point we're not going to get. The only thing I'd maybe do is if I had the right setup or something, or had access to more ground, I'd maybe consider grazing some cattle through the summer type of thing on it. Like whatever made economic sense to go buy. But as far as sheep, we're not buying sheep again until we get our name on a piece of ground, because 2 times we've had our operation turned upside down because of losing stuff. So we are to the point where it's like not doing it again. And I'm not going to lie, I was not complaining not having to take care of livestock when it was negative 15 outside. So
Yes, I heard that.
yeah. So I'm hoping I don't know. I don't even want to say I have any leads, but I've talked to a few people locally about potentially renting ground, and if they do, they do. And if they don't, well, I guess we'll just see what the future holds. So it's not easy.
You going to Burlington next week?
No, I wish, but no, I can only make it to about one conference a year. And so that's why I always try to make sure I make it to Wichita. So,
Well, and Soil Health U is next door.
oh yeah, I know. But again, if I can only go to one, if I can only take time off for one and have my wife stay home, keep the kids overnight by herself for one, I'm going to make it Wichita. So
That's fair. I'll make sure to harass Nick for you.
yeah.
Yeah. What else you got going on this year?
Oh, well, I'm on the conservation board, so try to keep busy with doing different stuff with that. We had Jay Fear last summer for 2 days, so that was good. And we're going to have another speaker, coming up for a day. Not going to say who yet because we don't have all the details worked out yet, but, stay tuned for that. You can follow the conservation district at Ottawa County Conservation District on Facebook, and we have a YouTube channel. So if you missed out on Jay Fear, we have his sessions, his field days, or our field stops with him from last year there. And so, but yeah, we're gonna have another big name. Like I said, I'm just not willing to say who it is yet, but it'll be good. I'm sure it'll be good. So
Yeah, don't say those things until they like actually confirmed and then reconfirmed that they're actually coming.
oh no, they've confirmed they're coming. We just have to figure out what we're exactly doing on our end. So as far as stops and stuff, but no, they're coming.
Okay.
I started that process back in October. So
Very cool. Very cool. We got to get out of here. Where can people find you, and what would you like to end with?
oh, they can find me lots of places. On Facebook, either at Tyrell Owens or at Double O Grazing Company. Find me on YouTube on Double O Grazing Company. Find me on TikTok at Tyrell Owens. Let's see. I'm on Twitter at I don't know what my handle is. Just look up Tyrell Owens and surely I'll pop up. But yeah, you'll see on YouTube. You can find my life story from the operation on YouTube. So, but otherwise, yeah, that's about it, I guess. I mean, if you message me, I'll respond eventually. So.
Hey, last thing, since we're here on Zoom and there are video versions available on YouTube, which is currently a week or two behind, and also available on Spotify, so people can see this. I know that you're using a virtual background,
Mm-hmm.
and you wouldn't be using it if the flag box in the background wasn't important. Can you tell me about that and who that person was?
So that is my grandpa Bio. So that'd be my mom's dad. So you might get a little, well, I don't know. You might get a little pushback or something on this. I don't know how active your commentaries are, but so he served. He was in the 1st Cavalry Division. He got drafted. He turned 18 in December of 1944. Got drafted shortly thereafter. Done basic training down in Fort Hood, Texas, I believe. And so he was actually training for the invasion of Japan. And
Okay.
so I never apologized for the fact that we dropped A-bombs on Japan because I'm a history major. I know what that would have been like. I listened to podcasts. I listened to books. My grandpa would have been in the invasion of Japan. So he was
agree.
actually...
I agree it was necessary. I agree that it was I'm not going to say necessary. Maybe I should say necessary. It was the tool that we had in the toolbox that was going to make things stop.
Yes.
I mean,
And so
horrific, absolutely horrific. Pandora's box we can never close again. But we probably would have lost 2 to 2.5 million people if we would have tried to invade Japan.
Yeah. Yeah. And so he was actually in the occupation. He actually was stationed in Tokyo for a year and a half or something like that. I mean, he got to go and tour the Imperial Palace. He climbed the mountain that's right outside of Tokyo. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head.
Fuji?
Yeah. Yep. He climbed that.
If that's wrong, it's wrong. It's the only mountain in Japan.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the name of it. I can't, like I said, I can't remember for sure, but he was always kind of a hero to me growing up. And so I got his, my aunt uncle's son-in-law made that for him. And so it's got his, let me go the other way. It's got his picture. That's his service picture right there. And then that's the last picture at their, what was that? Their 63rd or 64th wedding anniversary. And so after my grandma had it until she passed away and no one else wanted it, or they knew that I wanted it, basically, that I would keep it. So that's my, my token and will be my forever lasting, memory of his. So.
Well, very cool. Thanks. Thank you for sharing, sir.
Yep. Nope. If you can ask my wife, I always tell her my mouth gets me in trouble.
Good thing you don't have a podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's crossed my mind, but I'll just stick with the YouTube. I would like, and that's another thing because I have more time with not having the livestock, or not having the sheep. So we're finally getting chickens living in town, or that's the plan to get chickens anyways. Doing more gardening, and I done my first, I guess, interview kind of like this on YouTube with Tom Martin. What was that, 2 or 3 weeks ago? And I'm planning on trying to do more of those with different people that I know, different guys that have had an influence on me, people that I consider friends and connections. And so that's what I always tell people is I am beyond blessed with getting involved in soil health because I've made a lot of friends and acquaintances. I mean, and to me, that's one of the most important things about it is just increasing the size of your network and getting a good network put together. So,
for sure. And it's one of the things I love about being involved with soil health and things like Soil Health U and No Till on the Plains, High Plains No Till, and the conservation districts, Kansas Grazing Land Coalition. Like everybody's starting to align and move in the same direction, and it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. And I always tell people, we were managing a little over 100 acres. I had 60 head of ewes, and I don't get treated any differently by people who are managing 7,000 acre ranch with however many head of cattle that you're managing, or whether it's Michael Thompson farming a good sized chunk up in Norton County, who's kind of I don't want to say he's the face of soil health in Kansas, but I mean, he's the known commodity in soil health within the state of Kansas. And I get treated with the same respect as if I was some big shot, quote unquote, big shot farmer. And by no means am I a big shot farmer. I'm not a big shot anything. So
it's a good attitude to have. Good attitude to have. All right, bud. I got to get moving. Appreciate your time today.
Yep. Thanks for having me. I hope people weren't too bored.
Oh, I think it was great. If they were bored, I guess they usually send me the hate mail anyway.
Yeah, well, that's why I didn't give them my email address.
Fair enough. Mine's redhillsrancher@gmail.com. Send all the hate mail to me. I don't care.
There you go.
All right, gang. Guess that'll do it. Have a great week. We'll see you.